Which aircraft symbolized American air power during World War II? It was the B-17 Flying Fortress that earned this reputation due to its innovative design. This heavy bomber caused devastation in the skies over Europe and the Pacific. Today, we'll focus on the birth and aftermath of the Flying Fortress. The B-17 began to take shape under the supervision of designer E.D. Wells and a group of engineers. Its innovations included a circular cross-section, fuselage, and 4 engines for long range and high payload capacity. But most impressive to me were the B-17's multiple machine gun turrets and armored plating, designed to withstand anti-aircraft fire. To achieve this maximum range in combat, the Flying Fortress utilized a revolutionary wing design with a high aspect ratio. The 4 radial engines could propel the multi-ton aircraft to over 300 miles per hour. The B-17, with its hefty bomb load and defensive armament, was said to be a game-changing deterrent to aggression. The first production model rolled off Boeing's assembly line in 1937. It was armed with up to 13 machine guns. The Flying Fortress combined speed, range, and firepower, ready to take the war to future enemies using the sky as a battlefield. The stage was now set for the B-17 to become an iconic symbol. The B-17 was first used in action after America entered World War II following the Pearl Harbor attack. With the United States joining the campaign against Nazi Germany, the Flying Fortress led the bloody mission of breaking the Luftwaffe and crippling German industry. From bases in England, B-17 bomber crews carried out daylight strategic bombing raids deep into enemy territory. Despite facing intense fighter attacks and flak, the sturdy B-17s lived up to their famous name. Mission after mission, they endured horrendous conditions to bomb aircraft factories, oil refineries, and other critical targets in Germany. The B-17s formed massed combat boxes, bristling with defensive firepower. However, losses were still heavy as the Luftwaffe sent their fighter forces against the bomber streams. Air battles over cities such as Regensburg, Schweinfurt, and Dresden were some of the most costly of the air war. The crews that made it back were bruised but resolute to continue fighting. By 1944, B-17 raids, along with the arrival of long-range fighter escorts, had changed the air war. Under Allied skies, the fortress were released, destroying Germany in missions like the campaign against Berlin. They were instrumental in grinding the German war machine from the air into submission. Air supremacy was finally attained through the heroism and sacrifice of many bomber crews. The men of famous units like Memphis Belle and Ye Old Pub kept their air assault going despite heavy losses. The Flying Fortress, with their ability to take high-quality reconnaissance pictures, could now focus their strikes on the most critical targets. While forever linked to the bombing campaign over Europe, the B-17 also made crucial impacts in the Pacific theater. Flying from bases captured during the island-hopping offensive, fortresses helped clear the skies of the dwindling Japanese air forces. They bombarded enemy warships, shore installations, and troop concentrations across the vast theater. On the opening night of the Battle of the Philippine Sea, B-17s based on Saipan struck the Japanese carrier force. This Marianas Turkey shoot crippled the enemy fleet and was a pivotal prelude to one of history's greatest naval battles. Hundreds of flying fortresses also served as transports, airlifting troops, supplies, and casualties during many engagements. As American forces closed in on the Japanese home islands, B-17s joined massive bombing raids, targeting industrial cities like Tokyo. The relentless firebombing campaign further decimated enemy morale and war production. When the 2 nuclear bombs were dropped to hasten Japan's surrender, B-17 safely tracked the detonations from the air. After the Japanese surrender, the Flying Fortress was retasked to airdrop supplies and repatriate liberated prisoners of war across the Pacific. Many of the resilient B-17 crews brought their aircraft home to American cities for proud celebrations after their vital service in the war. During World War II, over 12,000 B-17s were produced by factories including Boeing, Douglas, and Lockheed. Production efforts reached their peak in 1944, with over 600 Flying Fortresses rolling off the assembly lines each month to meet wartime demands. Missions from the crew positions on the Flying Fortresses were among the most hazardous of the war. It took grim courage to man the ball turret or the freezing bombardier's post on every night-long raid. Of the 180,000 Americans assigned to B-17 crews, over 30,000 were killed or captured in action. A fully loaded 65,000-pound B-17G could carry up to 8 tons of bombs for over 1,500 miles. Its armament bristled with 13 50-caliber machine guns firing from all angles. By 1945, the accumulated Allied bombing effort spearheaded by the Flying Fortresses had crushed Germany's military and industrial might. The B-17 was rightly called one of the 4 outstanding combat planes of World War II, alongside the Mustang fighter, Liberator bomber, and Spitfire fighter. While obsolete after the dawn of the jet age, a precious few B-17s continue to fly today, thanks to restoration efforts. The sight of their bulky silhouettes and glinting aluminum fuselages remain a beloved link to the valor of the war generation. Far more than an aircraft, the B-17 Flying Fortresses ensured its eternal legacy through the incredible bravery of its crews. It took incredible guts and teamwork to fly through intense flak and fighter attacks during missions lasting over 10 hours. Names like Captain Joe Foss, the Memphis Belle, and Ye Old Pub crews entered the record books as some of the most storied bomber units. Foss became a bona fide American hero and recipient of the Medal of Honor for his exploits, downing enemy fighters while defending his B-17s over Europe. Bombardiers like Captain Tom Harvey were etched into the history books for their remarkable accuracy even under fire. The dogged determination of the Fortress's air crews to deal a final blow against the Axis powers remains an incredible testament to the American spirit of the greatest generation. Other B-17 crews became famous for astonishing tales of perseverance and survival. On the infamous Black Thursday raid to Münster, Germany in 1942, pilots like Bill Brennan nursed their crippled Flying Fortresses back to England through massive damage and casualties. Such displays of cool-headed heroism characterized the B-17 crews from start to finish. Many Fortress crews banded together as lifelong friends after the war ended. They held annual reunions into their old age to commemorate the bonds forged under fire. Their stories, medals, and framed pictures stood as memorials to their selfless service aboard history's most iconic warplane. In the decades since VE and VJ Day, the B-17 Flying Fortress has firmly cemented its legacy as one of the most iconic warplanes ever produced. Its sturdy lines and unmistakable silhouette adorn museums, memorials, and monuments in cities across America. Movies and books have kept the legend alive, depicting the courageous crews who flew the Fortress on their treacherous missions. The 1964 film, The War Lover, showcased the cramped conditions and drama aboard a Flying Fortress on a World War II bombing run. The Memphis Belle movie brought the story of that fabled crew to life. Veterans' reunions remain powerful reminders of the incredible service of the young men who manned these aircraft to help achieve ultimate victory. Aviation enthusiasts have restored a handful of airworthy B-17s that tour the airshow circuit each year as living history museum pieces. If you enjoyed learning about this legendary aircraft, make sure to like this video. Also, click the subscribe button and ring that bell for more amazing stories about warplanes and air combat.